Not every camera in 2025 is worth your money. Some were overpriced, overhyped, and flat out underwhelming. And today, we're naming names. From flagship flops that cost thousands to beginner traps that waste your hard-earned cash, this year has seen some serious disappointments in the camera world. You're watching Alt Buzz, and here are the top 10 worst cameras of 2025. Cameras you should avoid at all costs. If you're new here and want honest tech breakdowns, not just the sugar-coated stuff, hit that subscribe button now. We don't hold back, and after today's list, you'll see exactly why that matters. Number 10. Pentax KF. At first glance, the Pentax KF seems like a solid mid-range DSLR, but look closer and you'll find what might be the most uninspired camera release of 2025. Pentax essentially took their 6-year-old K70 model, made minimal cosmetic changes, and had the audacity to increase the price. In an era where innovation drives the market, Pentax decided to just not. The 24-megapixel APS-C sensor feels dated, especially when competitors are offering next-generation sensors with superior dynamic range. Even more frustrating is the full HD 1080i video at 60 frames per second in a world where 4K has become standard even on entry-level models. Imagine showing up to a client shoot with video capabilities from 2018. That's essentially what you're getting here. What makes this camera truly disappointing isn't just the recycled technology, it's the missed opportunity. Pentax has a legacy of durability and excellent handling, especially for still photographers. But instead of building on that foundation with modern features, they've released what feels like a clearance model from years ago with a fresh coat of paint. The built-in Wi-Fi feels like an afterthought, with an interface that would have been dated in 2020, let alone 2025. For roughly the same price, photographers could invest in systems with actual features, with expanding lens ecosystems and regular firmware updates. Pentax seems content to keep selling to a shrinking base of loyal users rather than competing in today's market. The KF isn't a terrible camera. It's just trapped in a time capsule while asking for contemporary pricing. That's why it kicks off our list at number 10. Number 9. Panasonic Lumix FZ80D. Remember when bridge cameras were the exciting middle ground between point-and-shoots and interchangeable lens cameras? Apparently, Panasonic doesn't. The Lumix FZ80D takes what should have been an impressive 60 times optical zoom range and pairs it with an image sensor that belongs in 2019, not 2025. The 18-megapixel 1/2.3-inch sensor is minuscule by today's standards, creating images that fall apart the moment you crop or try to shoot in anything less than perfect lighting. What's truly baffling is that Panasonic knows how to make excellent cameras. Their Micro Four Thirds and full-frame lines have passionate followings, yet they release this bridge camera with image quality that's routinely outperformed by mid-range smartphones. In bright daylight at base ISO, images look acceptable, but push beyond ISO 400, and you're looking at a noisy, detail-smeared mess that no amount of post-processing can save. The 4K video capability sounds impressive on the spec sheet until you actually try to use it. The rolling shutter effect is severe, making any panning shot look like you're filming with a bowl of jelly. The contrast detect autofocus hunts painfully in video mode, making it nearly unusable for moving subjects. Add in the fact that the lens, while impressive in range, drops to a dim f/5.9 at the telephoto end, and you have a recipe for frustration in anything but bright sunlight. For a 2025 release, this camera feels at least 3 generations behind. The truly sad part? For slightly more money, you could get a used Sony RX10 Mark III or 4 with a 1-inch sensor that delivers substantially better image quality while still offering an impressive zoom range. The FZ80D isn't just disappointing. It's a reminder that specs on paper mean nothing without the performance to back them up. Number 8. Canon EOS M200. Investing in a camera system is exactly that, an investment. Not just in the body, but in lenses, accessories, and a future upgrade path. That's what makes the Canon EOS M200 such a tragic entry on our list. Canon has effectively abandoned the EOS M mount, leaving buyers of this camera with a technological dead end. Despite being available new on store shelves in 2025, this camera represents an ecosystem Canon has already moved on from. The 24-megapixel APS-C sensor and DIG IC8 processor aren't inherently bad. In fact, image quality in good light is quite pleasing. The real problem is that every dollar spent on M-mount lenses is money thrown into a system with no future. Canon has made it crystal clear that their focus is entirely on the RF mount going forward, with no adapter solution that maintains full functionality between systems. Imagine buying into a camera system knowing you'll eventually need to replace every lens you purchase. The frustration compounds when you look at the camera's limitations. The tiny battery delivers barely 300 shots per charge, significantly less if you use the 4K video mode, which comes with a heavy 1.7 times crop. The 3-inch flip screen seems like a benefit until you realize it's designed exclusively for selfies, not versatile shooting angles. For vloggers, the lack of a microphone jack makes this a non-starter, despite Canon's attempts to market it to content creators. What makes this truly one of the worst cameras of 2025 isn't its performance today. It's what it represents for your photography journey tomorrow. A camera should grow with you, but the EOS M200 is a creative cul-de-sac dressed up as an entry-level opportunity. New photographers deserve better than a system their manufacturer has already abandoned. If you're enjoying this countdown of photography fails, make sure you're subscribed to Alt Buzz. We release honest tech reviews every week that could save you from making an expensive mistake. Hit that subscribe button now. Number 7. Leica D-Lux 8. The Leica badge carries weight and a substantial price premium. Unfortunately, the D-Lux 8 carries all of the premium with little of the performance to justify it. Based heavily on Panasonic technology, essentially a reskinned version of the LX100 Mark III, this compact camera demands nearly double the price while delivering virtually identical image quality. In 2025, when consumers are more informed than ever, this kind of premium pricing for red dot branding feels especially tone-deaf. The 17-megapixel 4/3 sensor was impressive when this design first appeared years ago. Today, it feels outclassed by competitors offering larger sensors, better low-light performance, and more modern features at lower price points. The 24 to 75 millimeter equivalent lens, while sharp, offers a limited range compared to other premium compacts. For street photography, it works well enough, but versatility is severely limited for the considerable investment. What's particularly disappointing is how little Leica has done to distinguish their version beyond aesthetics. The menu system feels dated, the autofocus system lags behind contemporaries, and battery life is mediocre at best. Video features, something even luxury brands can't ignore in 2025, feel like an afterthought with limited codec options and lackluster autofocus during recording. For a camera released this year, these limitations are difficult to overlook, no matter how satisfying the build quality feels in hand. This isn't about dismissing Leica's heritage or craftsmanship. It's about value and relevance in 2025. When Sony, Fujifilm, and even Ricoh are offering compelling compact cameras with larger sensors, better feature sets, and more competitive pricing, the D-Lux 8 feels like it's trading entirely on brand cachet. For photographers who care about image quality and capability more than the logo on the front, this Leica represents one of the poorest value propositions on the market today. Number 6. Pentax K-3 Mark III. Pentax earns the unfortunate distinction of appearing twice on our list with the K3 Mark III, a camera that perfectly embodies the company's refusal to acknowledge where the industry has gone. In an era where even the most stubborn DSLR holdouts like Canon and Nikon have embraced mirrorless technology, Pentax has doubled down on mirror-based systems with a flagship that's priced like it's competing with the best of 2025, but performs like it's stuck in 2019. The 25.7 megapixel APS-C sensor delivers solid image quality, and the optical viewfinder is admittedly gorgeous. However, everything else about this camera feels like it was designed by a committee that hasn't looked at competitor offerings in years. The autofocus system, while improved from previous Pentax bodies, significantly lags behind comparably priced mirrorless cameras. For moving subjects, whether wildlife or sports, the difference isn't subtle. It's the difference between getting the shot and missing it entirely. Video features feel particularly half-hearted. Yes, it offers 4K 30p recording, but the implementation lacks the video-specific tools that have become standard elsewhere. No focus-pulling options, limited frame rate choices, and an interface that treats video like an afterthought rather than a core feature. For a flagship camera in 2025, these omissions are inexcusable, especially at this price point. What makes the K3 Mark III truly one of the worst cameras of the year is its value proposition. Priced similarly to cameras like the Fujifilm X-T5, Sony A7 Mark IV, or Nikon Z5, it offers significantly less capability across almost every metric. The only photographers this makes sense for are those already heavily invested in Pentax glass. And even they deserve better than this overpriced, underperforming flagship that stubbornly refuses to acknowledge where photography has evolved. Halfway through our list, and the cameras are only getting worse. If this content is helping you make better buying decisions, consider sending a super thanks or joining our channel membership. Your support keeps these unfiltered reviews coming. Number 5. Panasonic Lumix S1R. Sometimes a camera isn't bad because it's inherently flawed. It's bad because it's been left behind. The Panasonic Lumix S1R represents a premium full-frame system that Panasonic seems to have all but forgotten in 2025. While competitors have released multiple generations of refinements, the S1R feels frozen in time with a price that suggests otherwise. On paper, the 47-megapixel sensor sounds impressive, and the build quality is undeniably excellent. But Panasonic's insistence on contrast detect autofocus in their full-frame line continues to be their Achilles heel. The depth from defocus system simply cannot keep pace with the phase detect systems found in every competing camera. For static subjects, it works adequately, but try to track anything moving faster than a casual walk, and you'll watch as your expensive camera hunts for focus while the moment disappears. The L-Mount Alliance promised a robust ecosystem, but the reality in 2025 is that native lens options remain limited and expensive compared to more established systems. Photographers investing in the S1R face the prospect of either adapting glass, with variable results, or paying premium prices for a relatively small selection of native lenses. For a system asking you to invest thousands of dollars, this limitation feels particularly acute years after its introduction. Perhaps most damning is that Panasonic's own Micro Four Thirds cameras often deliver a more consistent shooting experience despite their smaller sensors. The S1R represents a camera line that never quite found its footing in the market, and in 2025, its weaknesses are magnified by competitors who have relentlessly improved their offerings while this camera has stagnated. For photographers considering a full-frame system this year, the S1R represents one of the poorest value propositions available. Number 4, OM System Tough TG7. There's product iteration, and then there's whatever OM System did with the Tough TG7. If you place this camera and its predecessor side by side, you'd need a magnifying glass to spot the differences. In an industry where meaningful upgrades justify new releases, the TG7 stands out as perhaps the most cynical camera launch of 2025, asking consumers to pay a premium price for what is essentially the same camera they released years ago. The 12-megapixel sensor was already struggling to compete when it appeared in the TG6. In 2025, it's simply inadequate, especially when smartphone cameras with computational photography routinely outperform it in all but the most extreme conditions. Yes, you can take this camera 50 feet underwater, but the images you'll capture there have less detail than what many phones produce above water. The 4x optical zoom offers some flexibility, but at f4.9 on the telephoto end, you'll need bright conditions to make it usable. What's truly disappointing is that OM System, formerly Olympus, actually makes some impressive computational photography features in their higher-end models. None of those innovations made it to the TG7. Instead, we get the same processor, same interface, and same limitations that have plagued this line for years. The addition of USB-C charging is literally the most significant upgrade. Hardly enough to justify a completely new model number, and price tag. For a camera marketed to adventurers and travelers, the TG7 represents a failure of imagination. Rather than pushing boundaries with improved low-light performance, better video capabilities, or meaningful durability enhancements, OM System chose the path of minimal effort. In 2025, when even budget action cameras offer better video and comparable durability at lower prices, the TG7 stands as a monument to missed opportunities and consumer disappointment. We're about to reveal the top 3 worst cameras of the year, and trust me, you won't believe what brands made the cut. Drop a comment below with which camera has shocked you most so far, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Number 3. Nikon Z5. As we enter our top 3 worst cameras of 2025, we come to a particularly painful entry, the Nikon Z5. This isn't about a company failing to innovate. It's about a camera giant seemingly abandoning its entry-level full-frame customers. In a year when competitors refreshed their offerings with meaningful upgrades, Nikon left the Z5 languishing with technology that was already showing its age when it first launched. The 24-megapixel full-frame sensor is capable of beautiful images in good light, but the autofocus system reveals its inadequacies the moment conditions become challenging. Face and eye detection, features that have become remarkably reliable on competing systems, remain frustratingly inconsistent on the Z5. For photography involving people, from family portraits to events, this unreliability transforms what should be routine captures into exercises in frustration. Video features feel particularly neglected in 2025. The heavy crop in 4K mode effectively transforms your full-frame camera into an APS-C system, eliminating one of the primary benefits of investing in a larger sensor. The lack of 10-bit output, limited frame rate options, and mediocre rolling shutter performance would be understandable in a budget model from years ago. Not in a camera still positioned as Nikon's entry-level full-frame option today. What makes the Z5 truly one of the worst cameras of 2025 is Nikon's apparent disinterest in updating it while continuing to sell it at a price point that no longer reflects its position in the market. Entry-level photographers investing in their first full-frame system deserve current technology that will grow with them, not a camera that was already compromised at launch and has only fallen further behind with each passing year. The Z5 represents not just disappointed customers, but disappointed potential customers who might have become lifelong Nikon shooters had the company shown more commitment to this crucial market segment. Number 2. Sony ZV-1 Mark II. Content creators looking at the Sony ZV-1 Mark II might initially be excited by its compact form factor and creator-focused features. That excitement quickly turns to bewilderment when they discover that Sony somehow managed to create a sequel that removes key features from the original while charging more. In the competitive vlogging camera market of 2025, this kind of regression isn't just disappointing, it's baffling. The most glaring omission is the removal of optical stabilization that was present in the original ZV-1. Instead, Sony expects creators to rely entirely on electronic stabilization, which introduces a significant crop and reduces image quality. For a camera specifically marketed to handheld vlogging, this decision borders on hostile to its target audience. Walking footage that looks smooth on the original model now has a jittery quality that's immediately noticeable, even to casual viewers. The new 18 to 50 millimeter equivalent lens offers a wider angle, which is theoretically beneficial for vlogging. However, this advantage is immediately undermined by the lackluster aperture range that drops quickly to f/4 as you zoom, severely limiting low-light performance and depth of field control. Indoor creators will find themselves constantly fighting for adequate exposure or being forced to use higher ISOs that the 1-inch sensor struggles to handle cleanly. What makes the ZV-1 Mark II truly one of the worst cameras of 2025 is that it actively betrays the trust of creators who love the original. Rather than building upon a successful foundation, Sony inexplicably removed core functionality while increasing the price. In a market segment where competition from Fujifilm, Canon, and even smartphone gimbals is fierce, The ZV-1 Mark II stands as a cautionary tale of how not to iterate a popular product. Content creators deserve tools that solve problems, not create new ones. Number 1. Canon EOS R100. And finally, in the worst camera of 2025. It's a camera that looks decent on a spec sheet until you actually try to use it. It's a camera that actively sabotages the next generation of photographers with frustrating limitations and outdated technology. The Canon EOS R100 isn't just disappointing, it's borderline deceptive in how it markets itself to unsuspecting beginners. Canon's decision to use the ancient Digic 8 processor in a 2025 release is nothing short of baffling. This outdated chip cripples performance across the board, from buffer depth to autofocus speed to video capabilities. The 4K video mode comes with a heavy crop that transforms the field of view so drastically that wide-angle vlogging becomes virtually impossible. Even worse, the camera lacks a touchscreen, a feature so standard in 2025 that its absence feels like a deliberate attempt to cut corners regardless of user experience. The autofocus system advertises impressive coverage and eye detection, but in practice, it's painfully inconsistent. When lighting isn't perfect or subjects move unpredictably, which is to say, in real-world conditions, the system hunts and fails with frustrating regularity. For beginners who chose this camera to capture family moments, pets, or sports, this unreliability means missed moments that can never be recaptured. What truly makes the EOS R100 the worst camera of 2025 is Canon's cynical approach to the entry-level market. Rather than creating a true gateway to their impressive RF system, they've produced a camera that will frustrate and limit beginners at every turn. The kit lens is slow and soft, the ergonomics are compromised by the small body, and the overall shooting experience feels like it's from a previous generation. When beginners inevitably outgrow its severe limitations, likely within months, not years, they'll be forced to replace not just the body but potentially lenses as they move to more capable RF mount options. For a company with Canon's resources and engineering prowess, the EOS R100 represents not a failure of capability, but a failure of philosophy. Entry level doesn't have to mean compromised, and beginners deserve better than this cynical offering that seems designed primarily to hit a price point rather than inspire a new generation of photographers. For creating a camera that actively works against the creative development of its target audience, the Canon EOS R100 earns our designation as the absolute worst camera of 2025. This list isn't just about bad specs or disappointing features. It's about what happens when camera companies stop listening to photographers and start taking their customers for granted. These 10 cameras represent missed opportunities, cynical business decisions, and in some cases, a fundamental misunderstanding of what creators need in 2025. What's particularly frustrating is that we know these companies are capable of brilliance. We've seen Canon revolutionize autofocus, Sony push the boundaries of what's possible in a small body, and Nikon create some of the most beloved cameras in photographic history. That's why these disappointments sting so much. They come from brands that should know better. Did your least favorite camera make our list? Or did we miss a disaster you think deserves to be here? Let us know in the comments below. The conversation around these failures is important. It's how we push the industry to do better by showing them we're paying attention. Subscribe to Alt Buzz, drop a comment, send a super thanks, and consider joining the channel membership for more raw, unbiased tech content. We'll keep calling it like we see it, because your creative journey deserves honest guidance, not marketing hype. Until next time, this is Alt Buzz, where we tell you what the camera companies won't.